Q&A. We'll take 3, 4. Okay, 1. Oh.
Thank you. I have 2 questions, one from Mouad, one from Mohamed. Thank you for your presentations, all of you, by the way. The first one is for Mouad, and according to your presentation, it seems that the PGD is somehow co-opted, as you use this term, if we can say that, and the only voice which is expressing somehow a dissident against authoritarianism monarchy could be, for instance, the movement of justice and spirituality. And I was wondering, what do you think about that? What is the role of this movement? And if this movement is also having a role at the diasporic level, considering that it is very challenging against the monarchy. So this is the question for you. And the question for Mohamed, I feel very sympathetic because I was in Tunisia from 2015 and 2018 for my fieldwork, so it's very sad what is going on in these days. And I do agree with you with all the causes that paved the way to the autocratization. But as I was wondering if, in addition to the lack of economic support, the lack of institutions, such as the lack of a constitutional court, which is a major pitfall, if you were considering also the fact, for instance, that there were already since 2014 some securitization dynamics against, for instance, civil society actors. There was a huge breakdown of civil society in 2014. Many associations that I was interviewing were closed. So my question for you is, do you find any correlation between what was going on in 2014 onwards as a kind of path dependency that facilitated the autocratization process? Thank you.
I think we have 3 here, right?
Thank you. I had a question for Mouad. My question is about, you talked about the king's religious authority, right, as the commander of the faithful, Amir al-Mu'mineen. I was wondering, so there's an alternative discourse coming from the Islamist groups especially, right, the 2 main ones, but is there any alternative religious discourse from the ulama or like the more official religious institutions in Morocco at all? You know, in Egypt, for instance, you have Al-Azhar, Sheikh Al-Taib, has a relatively autonomous voice when it comes to religious matters, particularly from the authoritarian government in Egypt. Thank you.
Question. No, that's you.
Yeah, I have a question for Mouad as well about Morocco. What does the presence of Israeli troops on Moroccan soil recently in joint military drills tell us about the resilience of authoritarianism in Morocco? I mean, obviously it tells us it's very resilient because they don't care about public opinion, but you could say more about this recent development in terms of the political landscape in Morocco?
Thank you.
Hi, my question is for Mohamed. I followed Tunisia for many, many years at Human Rights Watch, and in hindsight, I overestimated the strength of the democratic reflex among the Tunisian people. I think we in civil society, both internationally and domestically, thought we were busy consolidating democracy in Tunisia, but things went off the rails abruptly, and the pushback has been, for me at least, very disappointing. And I'm not making a cultural observation because I'm seeing the same thing with horror in this country. The pushback to the dismantling of our checks and balances here has been disheartening. So I think Americans and Tunisians have something in common there. My question to you is, my feeling is that the democratic reflex will return only when the authoritarian or the illiberal alternative goes off the rails. And I don't see that yet happening in Tunisia, but ask you if you see signs of a stronger democratic pushback at all in Tunisia, or is it just the usual suspects who are a small minority pushing back?
So we'll go through one time, and if you have any concluding remarks, probably include it then.
Well, thank you for your questions, and I will try to do my best to answer them. So basically, your question, according to your question, is basically when we talk about justice in development, which is the Islamist that I was talking about, al-adala wal-tanmiya, which is taking the model of the Turkish model, so the Erdogan one. So, and the justice and benevolence, which is al-adl wal-ihsan. So al-adl wal-ihsan and justice and development party, and then the al-adl wal-ihsan, justice and benevolence. These are two, I would say. The opposing one is al-adl wal-ihsan, the justice and benevolence. Yes, as you know. So it's basically the difference between these two is that the justice and benevolence, al-adl wal-ihsan, these ones are hardcore on opposing the king, and they are also banned from the political participation because Sheikh Abd Salam Yassin, you know him, he's the one who sent the letter to, it's basically a small book to the previous monarch saying either Islam or the flood. And the thing is that these ones, they believe that the institutions, the state institutions are corrupt and they can't participate in the political change or political arena. So they believe that this participating in it, it's just symbolic. Plus, the big difference between them, the other ones, which is the other Islamists, which are soft and they are accepting to integrate in politics, they believe that we can still bring change through democratic institutions, but the Justice and Development Party, Justice and Benevolence, Al-Adl wal-Ihsan, they don't even believe in these institutions, plus they disagree with each other on one important thing, which is the title, the Islamic title of Amir al-Mu'mineen. The Justice and Benevolence, Al-Adl wal-Ihsan, they don't believe that he is Amir al-Mu'mineen. They believe even if he has a lineage, they say even if he has a lineage to the Prophet, this doesn't make him having the legitimacy, religious legitimacy. But the other ones, which is the Justice and Development Party that ruled for 2 decades, now people hate them, and I think that's also part of the plan. But also, this doesn't mean that they didn't make mistakes. They made mistakes, but they believe he is the Amir al-Mu'mineen, what is it we call Commander of Faithful. But it's very interesting. What happened is that during the Arab Spring, the other ones, the opposition, which is Justice and Benevolence, who are against the king and they don't want to participate in political institutions, these were the ones behind all supporting and bringing the masses to the streets along with the leftists. And also the leftists went down the streets fighting for that. So, and then what happens is that they felt betrayed because when the election came, who came? It's the ones who were recognized by the state, who are the Justice and Development Party. And those people also couldn't fulfill their promises, also because they say there were constraints. There were some constraints that the king was putting directly and indirectly on them. But also, that's the differences going on like this. One wants to change through political institution. One doesn't believe in it. One believes he is the commander of faithful. One they believe he is not, even if he has a prophetic lineage. And then the betrayal for the Justice and Development, Justice and Benevolence, Al-Adl wal-Ihsan, is that they fought for it, but the Islamists, the other ones, took it from them. And according to your, I hope I answered your question.
On diasporas, but
maybe, I think we're almost out of time, so maybe just.
Yeah, because there are two other questions. Yeah. I don't know if he can answer her, and then we can. And then the other question is that, of course, having to rule the government, to rule the country as a head of the state, as a king, of course you need that title, Amir al-Mu'minin. But this doesn't mean that all of the Muslim communities agree. Salafists or these al-adl wal-ihsan, the justice and benevolence, they don't agree. But of course you have your own ulama, you have your own scholars, and you are the head of the scholars of. So these scholars who are basically traditionalists, that we refer to them as Maliki scholars, so they go and they give the legitimacy for the king. I hope this answers the question for that. And the third one, which I just had a look, it was brief, that I just had a look on the Israeli training there. So Moroccans, I would say, as many of the Arab people, that they feel the pain of Palestinians, they really are not happy with all this normalization, and they are not happy with all what's going on. But it's always, you feel like the issue is between Morocco and Algeria. Morocco is trying to push to this, bring in American troops to do this military maneuvering, bring in Israelis, because we have this issue with the Sahara in the west. So it's the Moroccan Sahara, the Western Sahara. It's a big issue. So, but to be honest, to give further on that, people are outraged with it. They don't want it, but you feel like you can't do anything about it. Because I would say one more point, I'm sorry, is that the king had a privilege, because no state that had the Arab Spring was as a good model for people. So you go back to authoritarianism. These people, I want them. This is, and I can do what I want. So that's my. Sorry.
Thank you. I'll try to answer both questions super quickly. The first question, I totally agree with you that the 2011-2019 was not the best period of time, or the best democratic, like 10 years. Back then I was maybe arrested once in December 2016. I was detained in October 2017. I was arrested again in March 2017 in between. So I didn't have the best time. However, I wish that some of the mistakes that were made back then did not exist. Like, I really wished that the Constitutional Court was established. This could have probably saved us now from what is going on. I'm not going to say that what happened during that time did pave the way to the coup of Qais Said, but I would say some mistakes were brutal and somehow contributed to paving the way for him to do what he did, unfortunately. However, at least I would say, I wouldn't say this years ago, but I would say it now, looking back and reflecting on it, that at least back then we were able to sit at the table and talk together and talk things out. We had a national dialogue. People somehow governed together, the last parties that you'd think would agree worked so hard to agree on things they never agreed on. So we were working out something. Maybe it was a quasi or an attempt for democracy that we could have developed. But what is going on now, the guy sent tanks to the parliament, literally, dismantled, suspended the parliament and dissolved it, then suspended the constitution. They wrote a terrible one. He is doing everything that is to make us lose hope. We have a lot of political prisoners. We have journalists, bloggers, activists. There was a crackdown on civil society before Qais Said, to be totally transparent. So there were some attacks. There were issues, but what is happening now is way more dangerous. Back then, dialogue was always an option. I'm convinced now that dialogue at least was there back then. People would sit and talk together. I would speak with people in the Communist Party, people who know that at the end of time we're all Tunisians. Tunisians never looked at each other as enemies, like what is Qais Said promoting now. Literally all his speeches, 90% of his speeches are, it's me who support me and enemy
enemies and traitors and bad people that we should punish. There's a whole speech, there's a lot of hate speech that is being laid out there, and I think this is super dangerous. To answer super quickly the second question, I remember when Mohamed Khelifi set himself on fire in December 2010. That happened on December 17th. I took the bus to Sidi Bouzid the next day. No one back then at all expected a uprising/revolution to happen. People were upset, were tired, but nobody expected a revolutionary momentum. I would hope to say the same now. I think that revolutionary momentum might strike or spark at the last time we were expected to happen. The situation is unfortunately really bad. We have a political scene that is that has totally disappeared, was killed by the regime. Our freedoms are shrinking. Our margin of liberties is being destroyed. However, I would say I have faith, at least in the new generation that is very aware, that is very knowledgeable, that a lot of people who never lived under dictatorship of Ben Ali. So now when they see dictatorship being built, I don't think they like that. I don't think they'll accept it. The situation of the opposition is not at its best, since a lot of its leaders are in prison, and they need a lot of discussions and conversations to agree again and work together. But I have at least always hope in the new generation that is probably more used to living and calling for democracy than accepting and conceding to a classic dictatorship. Thank you.
Thank you. So please join me in thanking our panelists for bringing us examples from Sri Lanka, Jordan, Tunisia, and Morocco. And we'll go right into the next panel. Should I call Salam Ariati, who's the